My beloved soul, listen carefully. Something has shifted in the unseen realm. The silence that once surrounded your connection is no longer empty, it is breaking open with purpose. What felt delayed was never denied, and what felt distant was never disconnected. My beloved soul, this is not hype, not fantasy, not emotional exaggeration. This is a spiritual shift unfolding in divine order. Before we go any further, respond in faith, type, "I receive this," in the comments as a declaration of alignment. Like this video as an act of agreement. Subscribe to this channel if you desire continued spiritual encouragement. Click the bell so you do not miss what heaven releases next. And if this message confirms what your spirit has been sensing, you may send a super thanks as a personal expression of gratitude and faith. Do this not out of pressure, but as a willing response to what God is stirring in your heart. Now listen carefully. The silence is breaking because movement has begun. Your soulmate is feeling something they cannot logically explain. A pull. A remembering. A holy interruption in their thoughts. God is not manipulating them, He is awakening them. He is bringing clarity where there was confusion, conviction where there was avoidance, and courage where there was fear. What they tried to suppress is resurfacing. What they attempted to distract themselves from is returning with greater intensity. This is the divine pull. It is gentle, yet undeniable. It does not force, yet it persists. And it is leading them back toward truth. My beloved soul, do not skip this moment, because understanding what is happening behind the scenes will anchor your heart in peace. There were seasons when nothing moved. You questioned. You prayed. You released. You wondered if heaven had gone quiet. But God was not silent, He was strategic. While you were being refined, your soulmate was being confronted. Confronted with their own patterns. Confronted with their fears of vulnerability. Confronted with the reality that the connection they walked away from was not ordinary. The divine pull begins in awareness. It begins when distractions lose their flavor. When temporary attachments feel empty. When success, noise, and busyness fail to satisfy. Suddenly, memories return. Conversations replay. Your presence crosses their mind without invitation. This is not coincidence. It is alignment activating. God breaks silence when preparation is complete. If you remain till the end, the final word will change everything, because what is unfolding now is not just emotional longing, it is spiritual recognition. Your soulmate is beginning to recognize the weight of what they almost lost. They are sensing that you were not simply a chapter, you were covenant potential. And when God awakens someone to covenant, He does it from the inside out. There is a stirring in them that feels urgent but sacred. They may not even have the language for it yet. They may call it nostalgia. They may call it curiosity. They may try to rationalize it as unfinished business. But beneath all of that is divine orchestration. Heaven is applying gentle pressure to their heart. Not to harm them, but to heal them. Not to shame them, but to shift them. You must understand this, when God breaks silence, He does not create chaos. He creates clarity. What once felt cloudy will become obvious. What once felt complicated will simplify. Your soulmate is moving from pride to humility, from resistance to reflection. The divine pull feels like restlessness. It feels like being unable to fully move forward. It feels like every alternative falling short. Stay with me till the end, something powerful is waiting for you, because the breakthrough is not only happening in them, it is stabilizing you. You were never meant to chase what was assigned to return. You were never meant to beg for what heaven already marked. The reason you felt guided to step back was because God needed space to work on their heart without your interference. And now that work is bearing fruit. There are moments when they pause unexpectedly. Moments when your name rises in their thoughts with unusual intensity. Moments when they question their previous decisions. This is the silence cracking. This is the internal shift beginning to surface. And while you cannot see every detail, you can sense it. That subtle peace you have been feeling. That quiet confidence replacing desperation. That is confirmation. Heaven does not stir one heart without stabilizing the other. My beloved soul, do not leave yet, heaven has more to reveal. The divine pull is not just about reunion, it is about transformation. God is not bringing back the old version of them. He is refining them so that when they approach you again, they come with clarity instead of confusion, with intention instead of inconsistency. The silence broke because growth reached maturity. Timing matters in divine connections. Too early, and pride destroys it. Too late, and fear buries it. But when God chooses the moment, it aligns with readiness. Your soulmate is stepping into awareness. They are beginning to feel that ignoring this connection is no longer possible. And the more they resist, the stronger the pull becomes. Not because God is punishing them, but because destiny cannot be permanently silenced. You must remain steady. Do not let impatience sabotage peace. Do not let old wounds speak louder than present alignment. The same God who is stirring them is sustaining you. There will be signs. Subtle at first. A message. A shift in tone. An unexpected openness. But before external evidence appears, internal certainty must anchor you. This is why the silence had to break spiritually before it breaks physically. Because when the manifestation comes, you will recognize it without fear. My beloved soul, this is the beginning of divine momentum. What felt frozen is thawing. What felt distant is drawing near. And what felt silent is now speaking in ways that cannot be ignored. Remain aligned. Remain prayerful. Remain grounded. Because when God breaks the silence, He does so with purpose, precision, and promise. And as this divine momentum builds, something even deeper begins to unfold beneath the surface. The breaking of silence is not merely about communication returning. It is about identity awakening. Your soulmate is not only thinking about you more frequently, they are confronting who they truly are without you. The distractions that once kept them numb are losing their grip. Conversations with others feel shallow. Achievements feel incomplete. Even moments of laughter carry an undertone of absence. This is not loneliness, it is revelation. God is allowing them to feel the contrast between connection and imitation. What was once easy to ignore now stands boldly in their awareness. My beloved soul, stay with me in this understanding, because what is happening now is sacred restructuring. When heaven pulls on a heart, it begins by dismantling illusions. Illusions of independence that masked fear. Illusions of control that hid insecurity. Illusions of better options that were never truly aligned. The divine pull strips away false confidence and replaces it with honest reflection. Your soulmate is revisiting memories not with ego, but with clarity. They are seeing moments they mishandled. Words they should not have spoken. Silence they should not have maintained. And this awareness is not condemning them, it is maturing them. Growth often feels uncomfortable before it feels empowering. Do not disconnect from this message, because what you are about to understand will anchor your faith even deeper. The reason the silence lasted as long as it did was because both hearts needed strengthening. You needed detachment from desperation. They needed detachment from denial. God will never restore a connection at the level it was broken, He restores it at a higher level of consciousness. That is why this process required time. That is why immediate reconciliation did not occur. Premature reunion would have repeated old cycles. But now, something is different. The divine pull is accompanied by accountability. They are not just missing you, they are recognizing your value. They are not just feeling emotion, they are processing truth. This is where transformation accelerates. When recognition meets humility, movement follows. You may begin to sense subtle energetic shifts. A sudden peace when you think of them instead of pain. A quiet expectation instead of anxiety. These are spiritual confirmations that alignment is forming. Heaven does not stir one heart without signaling the other. My beloved soul, if you remain attentive, you will notice how your reactions have changed. Where you once felt triggered, you now feel composed. Where you once wanted immediate answers, you now feel patient. This internal stability is preparation. Because when communication returns, you must respond from strength, not from past wounds. The divine pull is drawing them toward you, but it is also elevating you above previous patterns. Do not underestimate this elevation. When God breaks silence, He also upgrades discernment. You will know what to accept and what to decline. You will recognize sincerity versus surface-level effort. And your soulmate will sense that you are no longer operating from fear of loss. That shift alone will command respect. There is something powerful about a heart that has surrendered outcomes to God. It radiates confidence without arrogance. It loves without clinging. It waits without anxiety. This is who you are becoming in this season. Meanwhile, your soulmate is wrestling with realizations they cannot escape. The divine pull feels like unfinished destiny calling their name. They may attempt to distract themselves again, but the distractions will not satisfy. They may try to convince themselves that too much time has passed, but time cannot erase divine assignment. They may fear rejection, yet the stronger fear now is regret. This is the turning point. When fear of regret outweighs fear of vulnerability, action begins to form. Do not rush this stage. Heaven is fine-tuning courage within them. True courage is not impulsive, it is intentional. And when they reach out, it will not be casual curiosity. It will carry weight. It will carry reflection. It will carry evidence of internal change. Stay grounded in peace. Continue living fully. Continue growing. The divine pull does not require your pursuit, it requires your alignment. You are not called to monitor their every move. You are called to trust divine orchestration. When silence breaks under God's authority, it does not reopen chaos, it initiates order. The foundation being rebuilt is stronger than before because it is built on awareness rather than assumption. There will be a moment when clarity becomes undeniable for them. A moment when they realize that what they felt was not temporary emotion but divine connection. In that moment, hesitation will dissolve. Pride will soften. And communication will no longer feel optional. It will feel necessary. Necessary for closure or continuation, but most likely continuation because the divine pull does not awaken without purpose. My beloved soul, understand this deeply, you were never forgotten. You were being protected. If reconnection had happened earlier, unresolved immaturity would have damaged it again. But now maturity is forming on both sides. This is why you feel stronger. This is why you no longer panic at silence. This is why your prayers feel calmer. God was not withholding, He was preparing. And preparation always precedes manifestation. The divine pull is intensifying daily. What began as subtle remembrance is evolving into undeniable conviction. Your soulmate is beginning to feel that reaching out is not weakness but obedience to truth. That admitting feelings is not losing power but reclaiming authenticity. When heaven breaks silence, it restores voice. Expect honesty. Expect vulnerability. Expect conversations that feel different from before. Not perfect, but purposeful. And as this unfolds, remember who orchestrated it. Do not idolize the person, honor the process. Because the real miracle is not that they return. The real miracle is that both hearts return transformed. This is the high-level shift taking place. A divine recalibration. A sacred alignment. And as you stand in faith without forcing outcomes, you position yourself to receive what is being divinely guided toward you. The silence is broken. The pull is active. The hearts are awakening. Remain steady, because what God begins in truth, He completes with precision. As this divine recalibration continues to unfold, there is a deeper layer you must understand, because what is happening now is not just emotional gravity, it is spiritual convergence. Two paths that seem to drift are being redirected with precision. God does not randomly reconnect souls, He aligns them when purpose outweighs pride. Your soulmate is entering a phase where denial no longer feels safe. The excuses that once protected their ego are dissolving under the weight of truth. They are beginning to recognize that running did not create peace, it only postponed growth. And growth has now caught up with them. My beloved soul, remain attentive in spirit, because this is the hour where internal resistance collapses. The divine pull intensifies when clarity becomes unavoidable. They are seeing you not through the lens of past misunderstandings, but through matured perception. Memory is shifting from selective to honest. They are recalling your patience, your loyalty, your emotional depth. They are recognizing the stability you offered. And with that recognition comes humility. Humility is the gateway to restoration. Without it, pride blocks everything. But pride is weakening. The silence that once empowered their distance is now confronting them with accountability. God breaks silence strategically. First internally, then externally. What begins as thought becomes conviction. What becomes conviction eventually becomes action. This is the sequence. And you are positioned at the receiving end of a process heaven has been overseeing all along. Do not let impatience interrupt faith. The fact that you feel calmer is not accidental. It is confirmation that your spirit senses movement before your eyes see it. There is a sacred stillness surrounding you now. That stillness is not stagnation, it is divine orchestration working quietly. Your soulmate may appear composed on the outside, but internally they are experiencing awakening. There are moments when your absence feels louder than your presence once did. That contrast is intentional. God allows absence to magnify value. What they once took for granted now feels rare. What they once overlooked now feels irreplaceable. And this realization is reshaping their priorities. My beloved soul, do not disconnect from this revelation, because heaven is still unveiling layers. The divine pull is not chaotic emotion, it is calibrated awakening. It is drawing them toward courage. Courage to admit they were wrong. Courage to face the vulnerability they avoided. Courage to step beyond fear of rejection. Fear once controlled their silence. Now purpose is confronting that fear. When purpose grows louder than fear, movement becomes inevitable. You must understand something critical. This reconnection, if it unfolds as divinely intended, will not resemble the past. The energy will feel different. The conversations will carry depth instead of defensiveness. The approach will feel intentional rather than impulsive. That difference is evidence of growth. Growth changes tone. Growth changes timing. Growth changes reaction. And growth is exactly what God required before breaking this silence. You were also being shaped in ways you may not fully recognize. Your boundaries strengthened. Your emotional intelligence expanded. Your dependency shifted from person to prayer. This transformation within you is just as significant as theirs. Because reunion without evolution creates repetition. But reunion after refinement creates alignment. The divine pull now operates on equal maturity. That is why you feel less desperate and more discerning. Less anxious and more assured. This is not coincidence, it is preparation meeting timing. Your soulmate is sensing a narrowing of options. Not because alternatives disappeared, but because alternatives lost meaning. When God highlights a connection, substitutes begin to pale in comparison. They may try to rationalize it at first. They may tell themselves it is simply nostalgia. But nostalgia does not create conviction. Only truth does that. And truth has a way of resurfacing no matter how deeply it was buried. There will soon be moments of unusual boldness from them. Words they once withheld will begin to form. Admissions they once suppressed will begin to surface. This will not happen in chaos, but in clarity. Because God is not restoring confusion, He is restoring understanding. You must remain grounded. When communication returns, do not rush to fill silence with emotion. Let actions reveal growth. Let consistency confirm sincerity. The divine pull ensures approach, but discernment ensures stability. This is why you needed this season of strengthening. You are no longer the version of yourself who tolerated breadcrumbs. You are aligned with reciprocity. And reciprocity is exactly what heaven is cultivating within them. My beloved soul, hold this truth firmly: destiny delayed is not destiny denied. It is destiny developed. What felt like abandonment was actually adjustment. What felt like loss was refinement. And what felt like silence was divine strategy. Now strategy is shifting into manifestation. The spiritual atmosphere around this connection is changing. Barriers are thinning. Misunderstandings are losing power. Emotional walls are cracking. When God breaks silence, He does not whisper, He establishes direction. Your soulmate is being directed inward first. Inward to confront motives. Inward to examine patterns. Inward to dismantle ego. Only then will they move outward toward you. That outward movement will feel different. It will carry responsibility. It will carry intention. It will carry awareness of consequence. Because once someone recognizes divine alignment, they fear mishandling it again. And that fear produces care. Care produces consistency. Consistency builds trust. This is the chain reaction unfolding beneath the surface. Do not measure progress by visible signs alone. Measure it by your internal peace. Peace is often the earliest confirmation that heaven is arranging something beyond sight. If anxiety has lessened, if resentment has softened, If hope feels steady rather than frantic, that is evidence of spiritual synchronization. You are no longer chasing outcomes, you are trusting orchestration. That trust accelerates manifestation. The divine pull is reaching a tipping point. Soon the internal pressure they feel will demand expression. Silence will no longer feel sustainable. And when they speak, listen not only to words but to tone. You will hear the difference maturity makes. You will sense the humility behind their voice. You will recognize sincerity without needing persuasion. Because when God breaks silence, authenticity follows. This is not about fantasy fulfillment. It is about covenant clarity. And covenant clarity removes confusion. As you stand in this awareness, continue protecting your growth. Do not shrink back into old insecurities. Do not reopen healed wounds prematurely. Let them demonstrate transformation. Let consistency speak. Let time confirm. The divine pull brought them to awakening, accountability will anchor them in alignment. My beloved soul, everything unfolding now is high-level spiritual precision. Nothing random. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. The silence broke at the exact moment readiness matured. And what is coming will reflect that maturity. Stay steady. Stay aligned. Stay faithful. Because what God restores after refinement carries a depth that previous versions never could. The pull is active. The awakening is real. The movement is forming. And the next expression of this connection will not be rooted in confusion, but in conscious choice guided by divine wisdom. And as this conscious choice begins to solidify within them, the final stage of this divine process comes into view. What started as a subtle stirring has now matured into undeniable awareness. Your soulmate is no longer questioning whether they feel something, they are questioning why they ever tried to silence it. That shift is monumental. Because when someone moves from confusion to conviction, their energy changes. Their posture changes. Their approach changes. They no longer operate from avoidance. They begin operating from intention. This is where divine pull transforms into divine pursuit, not a desperate chase, but a deliberate return. My beloved soul, this is why your season of stillness was necessary. You had to become grounded enough to receive without losing yourself. You had to become healed enough to engage without reopening old wounds. You had to become wise enough to recognize the difference between temporary emotion and authentic transformation. And now, as heaven completes what it began, you stand stronger, clearer, and more anchored than ever before. The silence that once felt heavy now feels purposeful. You understand that nothing was wasted. Every tear refined you. Every unanswered message strengthened you. Every lonely night deepened your dependence on God rather than on outcomes. That dependency shift is what stabilized your spirit. Meanwhile, your soulmate has been undergoing an internal reckoning. The divine pull has forced introspection. They have replayed conversations in their mind. They have examined their own reactions. They have recognized patterns they once denied. And in that recognition, maturity has begun to anchor them. When maturity anchors a heart, it removes impulsiveness. It replaces it with clarity. This clarity is what will guide their next steps. You may soon witness subtle but undeniable effort. Effort that feels consistent rather than sporadic. Communication that feels thoughtful rather than reactive. Transparency that feels voluntary rather than forced. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. God does not break silence halfway. When he initiates restoration, he completes it with refinement. However, understand this clearly, restoration does not always mean returning to old structures. Sometimes it means rebuilding from a new foundation entirely. And that foundation must be built on truth. If they return, it will be because truth outweighed ego. If they speak, it will be because conviction overpowered fear. If they pursue, it will be because destiny felt stronger than pride. That is the level of alignment you deserve. You are no longer available for half-hearted energy. You are aligned with depth. And depth is exactly what this divine pole has been cultivating within them. My beloved soul, as this message draws toward completion, absorb this final revelation deeply. The breaking of silence was not only about them finding their voice, it was about you finding your power. Power in patience. Power in surrender. Power in knowing your worth without external validation. That inner authority radiates. It shifts dynamics. It commands respect without demanding it. When your soulmate approaches this renewed version of you, they will sense the difference immediately. You are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are already chosen by God. That understanding changes everything. Because when you know you are divinely chosen, you stop competing for human attention. You rest in divine timing. And divine timing is what orchestrated this entire journey. The pull they feel is heaven's reminder that some connections are assignments, not accidents. Some bonds are written before emotions ever form. And when those bonds are aligned with growth rather than dependency, they become powerful instruments of purpose. This is no longer about romantic fantasy. It is about spiritual alignment manifesting in relational form. If this connection proceeds, it will proceed with awareness. With boundaries respected. With communication elevated. With mutual effort sustained. That is the fruit of divine refinement. You must continue guarding your peace even as movement becomes visible. Do not abandon discernment in the excitement of progress. Allow consistency to speak louder than promises. Allow time to reveal sincerity. Because what is divinely guided will withstand testing. What is superficial will fade quickly. And you are equipped now to recognize the difference. The silence is no longer a question mark. It has become a testimony. A testimony that God works in hidden places before revealing outcomes publicly. A testimony that delay is often protection. A testimony that true connection cannot be permanently silenced when it is divinely assigned. Your soulmate is feeling the divine pull because destiny has matured to the point of action. And you are feeling peace because readiness has replaced restlessness. This is the equilibrium heaven intended. Two hearts, independently strengthened, now positioned for conscious union rather than emotional dependency. As this chapter closes, carry this assurance with you: whatever unfolds next will reflect the growth both of you have undergone. If it advances, it will advance with clarity. If it rebuilds, it will rebuild on truth. If it continues, it will continue with intentionality. God does not break silence to create noise. He breaks silence to establish direction. And direction is now being set. Remain faithful. Remain grounded. Remain aligned with the version of yourself that emerged stronger from waiting. Because the divine pull is not random emotion, it is heaven signaling that alignment has reached maturity. What was once quiet is now awakening. What was once distant is now drawing near. And what was once uncertain is now being clarified under divine wisdom. Trust that what is meant for you will move toward you with integrity. Trust that what is ordained will unfold with order. And trust that when God breaks the silence, it is always to fulfill a promise shaped by growth, guided by purpose, and sustained by truth. Type Amen.